Well met, lords and ladies, Jacob Butter speaking, and a warm welcome to this week's Walking Wednesday. Now you might think that because of the woods and the hills that I'm in the same place as I normally am, but actually no. As it turns out my brother needed my car that he drove to work swapped with his car, so we all drove down to swap that over. Not sure why, but I guess he just prefers the other one, even though the one that I have right now used to be his. But you know, he's driven enough stuff recently to have ample expertise in what he actually prefers and what he doesn't. So there you go, new location this time. There you are. Yeah. So I guess there's one thing I should mention before we get into the topic of this video, as far as you know, driving around goes. It's presumed that I went on my longest car journey ever. Very recently, like a couple of days ago, and that was actually to pick him up from somewhere. So that was 45 minutes on the way, 40 minutes back, and apparently that's the longest that I've actually done. I'm not sure if that's the case, because I do remember that, you know, going to the test center sometimes and then doing a route around it. Maybe it felt longer, because that's what the presumption is now. But I just thought that it was a longer journey than it actually was. But yeah, who's really to say? So yeah, although then again, it was quite the interesting thing, because, well, first of all, I had music on for the first time. Second of all, I didn't realize that I was going to go down the A3 for the first time. So I was alone at night as well, or getting towards night, going close to 70 miles an hour, because that's the national limit on dual carriageways in some places. So that was quite the experience. But yeah, it's interesting, because, like, you know, the more that I do stuff, like I'm noticing now that when I'm on my own, it feels less daunting. I think it might be because I'm not, you know, I'm not worried about, you know, putting someone else alongside me in danger if I made a mistake, or alternatively, it's just that you know, I'm not trying to prove myself to anyone. Once I picked my brother up, he, you know, gave some directions and such, but it wasn't like he was, you know, assessing me or anything. So I think that might be the difference now that I've actually gone through that, and I'm able to just think, like, okay, you know, I did this. This is fine now. I think it's that kind of deal. So yeah. So it was, and also there was a bit of a concern, because, like, you know, he asked in a group chat, like, oh, who's going to pick me up or whatever, and then you know, I offered, because I was able to plot on my Google Maps for some reason where it was and nobody else could. And the concern was, you know, my dad offered to come with me because it was a long journey, just in case I didn't feel up to it or anything. And sorry, someone was waving me over. So but yeah, because of that, you know, because I hadn't done a journey like that before, I mean, I was going to have to at some point. And I mentioned this in a couple of Walking Wednesdays past, that that I don't like doing, you know, I don't like driving if I don't have a reason to. I like to have some sort of excuse, not just, you know, it's like, you know, it's an environment thing for the most part. But also, I did mention before what Ghosty referred to as vehicle burnout, and I like that expression. So I'm less burnt out now, but I still don't like to You know, just be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go for a drive for a bit. You know, let's pollute the atmosphere some more, you know what I mean? So that's why it's like, okay, well, I'll drive somewhere if I want to go somewhere for the purpose of Walking Wednesday, or, you know, for to pick somebody up. I'm also trying to arrange some things with friends before I go to Spain. You know, some IRL people, so that's another thing. But that hasn't panned out as of yet. That's also one thing that happened this week that, you know, Leon Tarkshina, you know, again, IRL friends, but, you know, I've talked to on Discord for quite some time, and on Skype beforehand. He actually left the group chat that he started with all of us in it. Because, sorry, I'm just trying to figure out what's best to do here. Because there was a car I thought was coming down that hill, but it stopped for some reason. Not that I didn't know if it could see me or try to cross or not. Yeah, this city is, well, this town is quite something as far as terrain goes. I went up a hill earlier thinking that, oh, well, you know, there's, at some point I'll have a relatively, you know, level surface to continue, but no. I just climbed the mountain and then decide to go straight back down it. That works, you know, because baby, there ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no valley low enough, ain't no river wide enough to keep me from filming for you lot. So there is that. What was I saying about other stuff? So yeah, I just thought like, okay, well, you know, for now that I have an excuse to drive by myself and, you know, keep people happy that are worried I might lose practice, that you know, I didn't want to lose that excuse. So eventually I said no, I prefer to go by myself, and worked it out from there. So ultimately, resounding success. And now we're going to go into territories of stuff that are successes, but far less resounding. Because if you've seen the title, you know that I want to do another talk about D&D. And about how those things are going. So, I think it was maybe like a week ago or so, possibly more, where Bon was talking to me because, you know, and I mentioned something to do with Quest the Rising Sun. Again, in case anyone still doesn't know what that is the D&D campaign that I am a part of on KW's channel, and has had plenty of ups and downs. If you remember my talk about lone wolves from you know, a few weeks ago, which based on my analytics, a lot more people saw than the average Walking Wednesday, so you most likely do. There were some issues back in the day. At that time, it was concerning how the group was gelling together, because there was one particular player who didn't feel like he was being particularly included, despite the fact that, you know, he chose a character that purposely excluded himself quite a lot. And then as a defense for why he decided he didn't want to take the action himself to initiate, you know, party secrecy, because it was in character. Yes, it was for the character that he chose to play. So that started a whole debate about what it means to be a lone wolf character. And apparently, he and I had vastly different definitions of what that meant. I say this anecdotally, of course, because we have talked about that since. In fact, after that video came out, he messaged me, and we had a slight back and forth about that particular idea. And I think that was just after he chose to resign from the campaign. And Hold on. I bring this all up because that's as far as Bond knew, I think, going into his brief holiday, as far as you know, what had happened, you know, as far as how stuff was going. So when he said, like, you know, this feels like it's falling apart, because I mentioned some sort of, like, you know, complication, there was like a minor thing there, you know, he added on top of that and said, like, oh, well, this seems like it's falling apart, without the added context that at the time we just done episode 5, which was one that we were all very happy with, because I mentioned this before, but this will be important later to remind people. We're all actors and writers, so when we play D&D, our usual method consists of role-playing. Well, so yes, it's all role-play, but, you know, some people, when they play the game, they're more so thinking like, ah, yes, I have these stats and these abilities, I combine them together to create the most powerful thing. They call them power players. And I think that, you know, that you can be both of those things, for the record. But from what I have seen so far, at least, in my admittedly limited experience, is that those two things don't cross over as much as you would think. I'm going to go back this way. So somebody coming and the road narrows, I don't want to complicate anything. But yeah, because what I mean to say is that in episode 5, what happened was we almost didn't advance at all during that. It was very nearly a case of, well, actually, technically speaking, you know, the DM made it so that there was a puzzle that was designed to waste our time, and there was nothing that was there, which, you know, for a live play session, I think should have been skipped. But we managed to find a creative solution to get over that hurdle, so it wasn't ultimately too bad. But after that, we got to like one other place, and there was a puzzle that, you know, we could have solved in the time that we had left. But then we all started. But then we all kind of chose that moment to drop a bunch of truth bombs. Because obviously our characters, a lot of them have like secrets that they're either keeping for somebody else or for their own sakes. And not everyone revealed everything, because there's still some stuff going on. But alternatively, you know, it's way better than, you know, being forced to do Zone of Truth on episode 3 or 4, for example. We got to it organically, and it felt more like a confession, and a willing one at that. And then also, and like that set different people on different trajectories. You know, Nathaniel's work with wild magic. Barb showed signs of PTSD for the first time, and had to be subdued due to also lack of sleep beforehand. Hera had, you know, had many things to reveal, including the wild magic thing. So a lot got forwarded for us. But but as far as, you know, the DM was concerned, trying to, like, you know, go through and solve puzzles and get through the crafted story, not so much. It's kind of like, you know, when I had a discussion years and years ago with one of my friends from secondary school, where you know, I talked about how I just started writing at this point, and how I felt that the best part, that the most important part of a story was the plot, you know, how you actually progress some stuff. But then she changed my mind about that and said that no, it's not that, it's the characters. Because, you know, you're following them, and regardless of what happens in the plot, the characters are the important thing, what people, you know, relate to. And then I kind of reconsidered everything that I'd actually, you know, consumed before that point and written, and it really changed my perspective on that. So since then, it's like, yeah, of course, character stuff is supreme, and that is also particularly what I've noticed, what everyone loves about all of the different live plays of D&D that I've seen, whether or not it's your classic ones like Critical Role, Dimension 20, or the stuff that, you know, trends with them is the character moments or the big revelations that have like a huge effect on them, or sometimes just a very funny NPC, and again, another character that someone comes up with. Or in the case of Evantris, it is just, you know, everyone messing around, making each other laugh, you know, hysterically all the time, with stuff that is in character for them to do because they've crafted them in that particular way. And I love all of those things. So, and so does everyone else. So we, at the time, felt that was our most successful episode, or our best foot forward. That was until this week when episode 6 came out. So episode 6 is now what we consider to be our favorite one, because I guess we kind of did both in a sense. We had some, we had more, we had them dealing with the puzzle, we had them all solving it together, so no one was absent from the proceedings. Sorry, again, difficult crossing to figure out in a moment. So many lorries here. Oh, look at that. Okay. I was going to say my parents are right there. They were, whether or not they were going to interrupt proceedings or not. I'll go this way. They have different philosophies, you know. My dad will come up to me, my mum will say, like, you know, ignore everything. And I've just realised it's a dead end, so I have to go past anyway. Okay, well, fair enough. We'll see. So, what was I getting at? I was getting at the fact that, you know, we solved a puzzle, and we also, there we are, shying away. Okay, and now I've got like 2 more people to get past. Okay, here we go. I'm just now maneuvering through cars or for people. It's always it's either noisy cars or, you know, getting up people's ways. One or the other. Either way, someone is being inconvenienced, whether it's me doing it or not, is the question. Right, back to what I was saying again, because the road's wider now. We had everyone there. We had we even had like an actual confession. The love story is proceeding quite nicely, and not to mention as well, at the end it was just a case of, like, you know, chaos and hilarity, because we managed to out of nowhere turn. Because this was a thing that apparently had been prepared by somebody else that the DM Vin just included. Apparently, if the spiders that we fought during the session failed a persuasion check or saving or whatever it was, they would transform into something, and 3 of them transformed into cat girls. Another one transformed into a flea, but then we persuaded it to then become a cat girl. So suddenly we had 4 cat girls at the end of the session that were able to help us out. And we were also able to either charm or enchant them otherwise to help us. which left the DM in an awkward position. But we love whenever we're able to turn people to our side. We like to solve combat encounters through peaceful means, and that's why we end up with so many people, following on a trail during the one-shots that we've done. So yeah, we have at the end of that, we had four new people in the party that we were not letting go, and so we managed to scratch the chaotic itch that we had, as well as the storytelling and puzzle solving one. So ultimately, it was like the most complete session. We only did one puzzle towards the end, but that was kind of all we needed in that moment. I'm going up towards a museum now, apparently. I'm never filming in this town ever again. This is way too much to navigate. Okay. Should I go that way? Should I go that way? I'll go this way. Yeah, so at this point we were all incredibly happy. So this is after Bond talked to me about this and said everything's falling apart. It seemed to be picking itself up. And that's usually the general consensus, especially like after we do a session and we're always like really happy about how it turned out. Not to mention we're improving our visuals as well, because now we're able to use PNG tubers, and I control all of that through OBS rather than having to go direct to Gacha for everything. So that's really helpful. That was a great idea that Aiden had. So really things are looking up. I'm going to pause here for a second. I know I'm going to get to the end of this and we'll resume. Okay, resuming. So after all of that, whenever there's a session, we actually are very satisfied towards the end. We sometimes will have discussions either right after it happens or off camera of where we want stuff to go, or potential plans. We know a lot more spoilers for each other's characters than we're letting on. Some people prefer to keep that stuff entirely a secret when they play the game, but we actually like to at least talk through it, because we all know each other well enough to say we're not going to reveal something before any of us know it. As far as dramatic irony goes, we are very careful with that. But yeah, that being said, the reason I say it's not an entirely resounding success is because there have been some bumps about that. Yeah, we were supposed to do a session on Monday. Continuing on from where we left off, episode 7, nice and simple. However, there was some uncertainty on the part of KW, who, by the way, changed the schedule to Mondays, Thursdays, or Fridays. That's why we were considering it in the first place. But she did say to us that she might not be able to do Monday, depending if this new SMP that she was joining was opening up or not, and then she'd be busy for the rest of the week. So, in isolation, you think, okay, well, that's understandable, that's an okay thing to do. But then again, the reason that the campaign days have changed, I'm not able to do Tuesday anymore, is because one of the other campaigns that she does happens on Tuesday, and that has shifted everything for her. And just as well we were able to all agree to that, because otherwise, it would have been a bigger problem. Now, I do know that Junior is actually part of that campaign. I know that his scheduling is much stricter than most of ours, or at least it's back to school day for some people. So, it has been historically stricter than most of ours. So that might have something to do with it. But in isolation, I did get, let's say, an anonymous complaint that I've yet to pass on to KW, but I do want to bring this up to her eventually. That it does seem like out of everything that happens in her schedule, Quest the Rising Sun is always the thing that gets the short end. That might not actually be true because we don't know, the schedule changes for everything else, but it does seem like because of the way that we are able to gracefully, accept changes, we seem to be like the least, let's say, sensitive group. We don't take everything as personally, which is why saying this right now feels so alien to me. But yeah, the anonymous complainer did actually say that it does seem like because we are, because we're not going to, raise too much of an issue, that we can have stuff being changed around and, not have, not like, lash out, or I don't know if lash out is the right word, not complain too much and make her feel bad for it. And partly you can understand that idea, you don't want to end up feeling worse for a decision that you're forced to make between two things that you like to do. So that's why I'm going to be very careful when I mention this to her. But it is something that has, that is the issue that's come up behind the scenes for us. Well, I guess one of the issues, because the other was what I was going to make this video about to begin with, and I just haven't, I've got a full circle now. And I just haven't gotten around to until the very end of this, recording session. But Aiden has been wanting to try DMing for some time. It was partly going to be me, but when he offered me to do it, and I said, "Oh, I have one idea, but I think I have to have it ready," he immediately jumped off and said, "Oh, well, I'll do it then." I didn't get a chance to think of something else, which is fine. Because we decided that because of the whole Catgirl thing from last session, we were going to take this opportunity to make something that was non-canon, but also to flesh out and establish what the characters of the Catgirls are actually like. That was our plan. And so because of that, we did Catgirl Island, which is weirdly enough the most successful, or view-wise, D&D thing that we've done, which is interesting because it is non-canon and connected to something else. You wouldn't expect that, but that's how it happened. So that's good at least. But the thing in that one is, it all started off fine. We were going. Our goal was to play the 4 Catgirls that we, because there would be 4 of us there that were stuck on an island, and Aiden was going to, guide us through and show us the way. Then our usual DM wanted to show up as a character, partly because Aiden did invite him. I keep telling the people DMing these things that the more people that they invite around, the more chaotic or the more unmanageable it's going to become. And for Aiden being a new DM, I was very concerned about that. So I had nothing against Vin joining, but I was worried for the sake of Aiden. Turns out I wasn't worried nearly enough. Because what happened was, remember I mentioned before that some people are power players versus role players? This is partly instigated by me because I'm, playing a rogue character and decided to try to commit a in-game heist as such that did not work. So partly Vin's character, who was not a Catgirl, was a reused character from something else, which is why it had such powerful combined stats and everything, was covering for me. But that resulted in attacks that were only meant to be used in tandem. A challenge saying don't challenge me to a combat. There was no combat planned originally, but Aiden, after having that be so cruelly reminded of how inexperienced he actually was in comparison to Vin, decided that, okay, I can't let this lie, we're going to have to do a thing. And so the thing devolved into them one-upping each other. And that was a lesson on how power players and role players don't always mix super well. Because, you know, we were telling Vin about this stuff because then, as a DM, he wasn't used to our particular group and how we worked. But we worked together as a group in a specific way. He mentioned that all of his friends were power players. And that is 100% the case. That's what he's used to. And now I'm running out of space, so I can't continue the story. I'll have to free up some stuff. Okay, I freed up another 8 minutes. Nice. So, yeah. To concrete. So again, the intention that we had was all about figuring out how the Catgirls would work together, or, you know, what they could actually do. Aiden was very vague about the setting, so all we knew was that we were on an island. Apparently that's all that he wrote down as far as like a story description, which, based on Aiden's video descriptions, 100% tracks. That's very much what he does. Which is not to say that nothing happens, because yeah, he had like 5 different settings of stuff. You know, there was like the north, east, and west forest, and there was also the east and west beaches that we were. We started on the east beach, and because he knew about how we had to split up the party, he had stuff prepared in each setting that would help us ultimately. And eventually there was some sort of map that meant to lead us to a temple, and there was a person who would help us. To escape. I presume the temple was to the south because that was the only place that didn't have a description on the island. But ultimately, without the map, you're supposed to not know to go there. So none of us decided to be the chaotic person and just immediately walk towards the south because we didn't want to sabotage him on this first time. But anyway, because of the my failed heist, because I rolled low on stealth a couple of times. Also because it seemed like, Vin managed to swindle one of Aiden's NPCs, Patchy the pirate, naturally, because reasons. That was not going so well. So eventually, instead of rather than not having any combat, there was combat. But that's when Vin pulled off a combination. Apparently, all the stuff that he did only works in the combo, which meant he dealt a lot more like excess damage than he was supposed to or needed to. And frankly, I'll be honest, if he decided to cast even one of those things, it wouldn't have one-shot necessarily. But it would have definitely, it would have definitely. So I'm just looking around again. And the train's going by, so I'm not going to talk. Yeah, it would have been fine. You know, it wasn't like you need to end things in one turn. That being said, I did. I'm responsible sometimes for ending combat things in one round via creative solutions, but usually if everyone else has done something first, because a lot of that involves teamwork. But in this case, it was just a case of someone just absolutely schooling a new person, and that new person not taking that line down. So the second half, or I guess when we cut away from those particular points, it ended up sending Vin's cat down a dark path. Because suddenly, due to different motivations, or the fact that Aiden used like Vin's randomness table, which is able to change someone's like alignments and such, my character ended up with a bloodlust. So which played into the idea of like the power increase and the power hunger and such. Eventually, Vin's character ended up going on like a villainous spree, and because of the way that it was able to do all these combos and stuff, despite being the same level as us, would have been an unparalleled threat to some of us. And also the chat, including Bond, did encourage the bloodshed. All of that to say that suddenly it became about like surviving this random person who, I will re-emphasize, was not supposed to be there, and we accommodated suddenly being the person who could like end everything for us. And it was a one-shot, so ultimately a TPK or total party kill is something that happens a lot of the time in one-shots. In fact, some of them that we've done in the past were supposed to end in that way, but again, through creative solutions, we've managed to survive. And this one was no exception, actually. So, because of the way that that combo worked, ultimately everyone except for one character who was chosen to be spared, that was Mai the Bard, while the cat girls, was chosen to live on because you know, they'd grown fond, and apparently supposedly the character had fallen in love because that was a role that happened. So I then suggested, okay, well, if you bring the other characters back, maybe she'll at least, you know, not hate him. So motivation-wise, that would have been a good idea. So God powers aside, we got resurrected. There was a couple of things as well, like Aiden tried to do this thing about using pills again, because everything Aiden is pill-related nowadays in D&D. That we could cause somebody to, you know, someone to instantly die if they were touched by somebody who had just taken one of those pills. Ultimately trying to use his DM powers to one-up, but then it turns out that despite a really like fun way of doing that, and all the characters being safe because I made sure as my character that I protected them at all costs and got them out of there safe and sound. So ultimately it was an Aiden versus Vin showdown again, but Vin's character, Miyata I think it was, had this thing where upon touch all curses got removed, so that ultimately didn't work. So it seemed like, again, almost invincible, and the idea of like facing off somebody who is practically invincible, like during a one-off thing, it was not a fun idea. Like the fact that it became about survival rather than like, you know, working together to you know, solve clues and such. That ultimately, Ghosty did admit that Ghosty being character played by Mai, that she wasn't having fun anymore. Like it wasn't enjoyable. And that's the problem, is that when you combine role players and power players, the reason that they don't gel so well is because their objectives will clash. You know, whereas role players will take a specific situation and try to like either help out together or, you know, figure out some way, rely on people, tell a good story of overcoming obstacles. The power players will have tried to account for all the obstacles and will try to immediately use like whatever way they can break the game in order to circumvent those obstacles. So when they become the obstacle, they are basically impossible, and that's make for a good story. So that's the problem. That was what was an issue for us. But ultimately, Vin's the DM, so it shouldn't matter too much. To clarify what I meant that Vin is the DM of Quest the Rising Sun, and so as a result, the group will continue. The reason I told this story is ultimately because that's something to bear in mind. It's something that I hadn't actually thought of whenever the subject actually came up. So, and then for the record, no one's like mad at anyone anymore. This stuff does actually happen, and you know, we've all overcome worse as far as D&D stuff goes. Ultimately, it was always going to be a risk for us because I know that, you know, depending on like projects and such, anything can really like, you know, derail a friendship group. Like I've had that happen before, back when Mutant Girl first started. No, it's not a D&D thing, but back when that started, there was a lot of discourse that happened where, you know, we just ended up just like losing out on, where the whole circle broke down. They say that if you want to work on something with people, either when you start, you have to choose either professionals or your friends, and you can't choose professionals because they won't accept, and you can't choose your friends because by the end of it they won't be your friends anymore. That's not entirely true, but it is a risk that happens sometimes. And if the Quest Rising Sun or the Power Player stuff had been worse, that could have been derailed. But then again, we've all been through thick and thin, most of us anyway, apart from Vin, I suppose, have been through thick and thin together through many different projects. So, despite Bond's warning, I don't think either one of these is, I don't think Quest Rising Sun is falling apart anytime soon. Calculine was a one-shot. We don't ever have to do it again. The characters are fleshed out. The mission was complete. But as far as the overall stuff goes, I will have to address KW as far as that complaint I received, because it probably should be me that does that, because I'm good at conflict resolution. I've got natural charisma in real life. But other than that, again, it's something that's been worked through, and she did request that if something does happen, for her to be told about it. So I'll raise it as a point of concern. Won't say who it's from, and we'll see where that goes from there. And looking forward to episode 7 sometime next week. Everyone's back at school. Hopefully we're still able to do what we've been doing so far. So, and it also comes down to KW's promise, I suppose, because she did promise that, nothing will interfere with it anymore, but, life happens. So a reminder of that. But hey, no matter what's going to happen, we're still all friends. Even if the story does fall apart for whatever reason, we have had a fantastic run. But I'm not saying it's going to end, because the run must continue from here. So please leave a like or dislike, because your opinion matters. And subscribe to us already. And on that note, until next time, farewell.